Zuri set her access card on the front desk at exactly 8:00 for on a Monday morning, picked up her one small box, and walked out through the glass doors without looking back. The security guard called her name twice. She kept walking. The morning air hit her face, and she breathed it in slowly, like someone who had been underwater for a very long time and had finally decided to swim up. She had not cried. She had not shouted. She had not sent a resignation email full of things she would regret. She had simply decided, on Friday evening, sitting in her car in the parking garage after the boardroom announcement, that she was done. And Zuri, when she decided something, did not undecide it. 3 years. 3 years of arriving before everyone else and leaving after the building went dark. 3 years of building a financial architecture so clean and so layered that auditors had come in twice and left with nothing but compliments. 3 years of writing reports that Director Park, who had just been handed the senior director title that was supposed to be hers, couldn't read without calling her desk to ask what the numbers meant. And Cha Woo-jin had sat at the head of that boardroom table on Friday and announced Park's promotion without so much as a glance in her direction. Not one glance. Like she was furniture. Like she was part of the building. So she left the building. If you are new here, you're going to want to subscribe before the story is over because we do not do timid women on this channel. Like this video, drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Zuri's position, and let's get into it. By the end of week 1, Zuri had slept past 7 every single morning. She had cooked real food. She had called her mother in Lagos twice, just to talk about nothing. Her best friend Amara came over on Wednesday and sat across from her at the kitchen table watching her eat jollof rice with the calm expression of a woman on vacation, and Amara kept waiting for the breakdown. It didn't come. "You are not okay," Amara said finally. Zuri looked up. "I am absolutely okay." Amara pointed at her. "That is exactly what someone who is not okay says." Zuri laughed and offered her more rice. Meanwhile, at Hanseo Capital, things were beginning to bleed quietly. Director Park had been in the senior director chair for 6 days and had already approved 3 fund transfers in the wrong processing sequence. They were small errors, the kind you wouldn't notice for weeks. But Zuri's system was not built for small errors. It was built like a watch, every gear connected to every other gear, and small errors in a watch do not stay small. They travel. Cha Woo-jin was not a man who panicked. He was 34 years old, and he had been running Hanseo Capital's legitimate face over the Cha family's underground operations since he was 26, and in that time he had handled things that would have broken other men into pieces. He did not panic, but he paid attention. When his head of operations slid a report across his desk at the end of week 2 and told him the quarterly projection filing was overdue, that 2 subsidiary accounts were flagged for irregular timing, and that the U Network, a rival family that had been circling Hanseo Capital's territory for 18 months, had made contact with one of their shell companies. Cha Woo-jin read the report twice and set it down very carefully. He called Zuri's direct line. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Her recorded voice was professional and unbothered, and it made something tighten behind his eyes. He sent a message through his assistant. No reply. He authorized HR to contact her with a formal reinstatement offer and a 15% salary increase. She read it. He could see the read receipt. She did not respond. He sat in his office on the 22nd floor and looked out at the city for a long time. Then he told his assistant to find her home address. Zuri was finishing dinner on a Thursday evening when the knock came. She almost didn't get up. Then something made her cross the room and look through the peephole, and she stepped back and looked again, because the man standing in her hallway was Cha Woo-jin.
Nobody got it.
No assistant. Just him, in a dark coat, standing in the corridor of her ordinary apartment building like the most dangerous man in the city had somehow ended up lost in a normal neighborhood. She stood there for a moment with her hand on the door. Then she opened it. He looked at her. She looked at him. Neither of them said anything for 2 full seconds. "I want to talk," he said. "I'm eating," she said. "I can wait. You can also leave." His jaw moved slightly. Zuri. It was the first time in 3 years she had heard him say her name without it being attached to a task. She noticed that. She didn't show that she noticed it. She stepped aside and let him in. He sat at her kitchen table like he had sat at 1,000 tables, like the room belonged to him by default. She sat across from him and picked up her fork and continued eating. She did not offer him anything. She did not apologize for the food on the table or the apartment that was small and warm and entirely hers. She ate and she waited. He laid out his position the way he laid out everything: structured, controlled, efficient. Her role was critical. Her departure had created operational disruption. He was prepared to discuss compensation and title. He said it like he was reading from a document. Like this was a negotiation he expected to win in under 10 minutes. She listened to all of it. Then she put her fork down. Chief Financial Architect, she said. Signing authority on all operational accounts. A seat on the board. And 4% equity in the Hanseo capital structure. The silence that followed was loud. That is not how this works, he said. She looked at him steadily. You built your entire financial safety net around one person and then insulted that person on a Friday afternoon. I know exactly how this works. That's why you're sitting in my kitchen instead of sending another email I don't have to answer. She stood up. She walked to the door and opened it. He got up slowly. He walked toward the door. And he stopped just at the threshold half a second longer than necessary, like he was going to say something else. He didn't. He walked out. She closed the door. She leaned her back against it and looked at the ceiling for a moment. Then she went and finished her dinner. 2 days after Cha Woo-jin walked out of her apartment, the Yoon network made a formal move. It was elegant and aggressive, a business acquisition offer directed at 2 of Hanseo Capital's shell subsidiaries, structured in a way that would have looked completely legitimate to anyone who didn't know what those subsidiaries were actually holding. The offer was designed to arrive when the parent company was distracted, weakened. It was the kind of move that only got made when someone believed the other side had lost its footing. Cha Woo-jin's underboss, a quiet man named Ji-hoon who had worked for the Cha family for 15 years, brought him the offer document and placed it on his desk without a word. Cha Woo-jin read it. Then he looked at Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon said, "We have 3 weeks before their deadline forces a public response. Without the architecture actively managed, we cannot counter this without exposing the holding layer." He paused. "We need her back, Woo-jin. Not as an employee. However she wants to come back." Cha Woo-jin said nothing. He folded the document closed. That same evening, 40 minutes away, Zuri was sitting on her bedroom floor with her laptop open and an expression on her face that Amara, had she been there, would have immediately recognized as dangerous. It was the look Zuri got when she had found something. Quiet. Focused. Like a door had just opened that she hadn't known was there. She had been clearing out her personal encrypted backup drive, files she had stored privately over 3 years as a habit of professional self-protection, the kind of habit a woman learns quickly when she works in rooms where the power doesn't belong to her. Most of it was routine. Projection models. Structural diagrams. Her own working notes. And then, buried inside a folder dated 14 months ago, a file she had copied without fully examining during a late-night audit of the original Hanseo Capital founding records. She had flagged it as anomalous at the time and told herself she'd come back to it. She never had. She opened it now. It was a transaction record. Private. Over 20 years old. A fund transfer from the original Hanseo Capital founding partners, 4 names, the last of which was Cha Dae-hyun, Woo-jin's father, to a private trust registered simultaneously in Lagos and Seoul. The beneficiary name on the trust was Adiz Okafor. Zuri stopped breathing for a moment. Adiz Okafor was her mother's name before she married. She sat on that floor and did not move for a long time. The building was quiet around her. The city outside her window kept going. She read the document again, slowly, and then a third time, and by the third time her hands were completely steady because Zuri did not fall apart when things got serious. She got clear. She called her mother. She kept her voice easy, asked about dinner, asked about the neighbor's new baby, and then in the middle of conversation she said casually, "Mama, did you ever work in Seoul? Early 2000s maybe." The silence on the other end lasted 3 seconds too long. Her mother said, "Why are you asking?" Zuri said, "Just curious." Someone mentioned the name of a firm. Another silence. Then her mother said, very quietly, Zuri, let sleeping things sleep. And that was all Zuri needed to know. She called a forensic records contact she trusted, gave him the document details, and asked for full trace on the trust. He came back to her in 18 hours. Here is what he found. Zuri's mother had been working as a financial consultant in Seoul when she was brought in to review the original Hanseo Capital books as an external auditor. What she found inside those books was not money laundering. It was the financial infrastructure of something much darker, the kind of operations that, if exposed publicly, would have destroyed not just the Cha family, but several connected political figures across 2 countries. Rather than going to authorities, a move that would have put her life and her family's lives at serious risk, Adiz had gone directly to Cha Dae-hyun. She gave him the evidence. She gave him her silence. He gave her the trust settlement, moved her out of Seoul within the month, and buried every record of her involvement. But the settlement documentation had a clause that read, in precise legal language, that if any direct descendant of Adiz Okafor ever became employed by Hanseo Capital or any of its affiliated entities, the settlement was automatically void, and an evidence package held by a designated legal contact in Geneva would be released to the appropriate international authorities 30 days from the date of employment commencement. Zuri had been working at Hanseo Capital for 3 years. The release timer had started the day she was hired. It had 30 days from that point. It had already counted down to 1 day remaining. She had been inside the building for 1,095 days without knowing she was sitting on a timer that could end everything. She looked at the ceiling for a very long time. She had 2 thoughts in sequence. The first was, someone in that building knew who she was when they hired her. The second was, that someone let her walk in anyway. If you are still watching, I need you to comment right now. Did you see that coming? Because this story is just getting started. Like the video so the algorithm keeps pushing it. And let's keep going. Cha Woo-jin came back to her apartment on a Saturday afternoon. This time he brought a written offer, not everything she had asked for, but closer. Equity at 2%. A senior title, though not the one she had named. He sat at her table again and slid the document across to her with the confidence of a man who had spent the last 3 days constructing a compromise. Zuri picked it up. Read it. Set it down. Then she looked at him directly and said, Did your father ever mention a woman named Adiz Okafor? The room changed. It was immediate and it was total. Cha Woo-jin's face did not do very much. He was too practiced for that. But something moved through his eyes that he couldn't stop in time. He knew the name. He had known it for 3 years. Zuri watched him and knew that he knew. She told him about the trust. She told him about the clause. She told him 1 day remained on the release timer. She told him all of it in a voice that was completely level, like she was presenting a quarterly report, and that levelness was the most frightening thing in the room. He didn't speak for a moment. When he did, his voice was lower than usual. What do you want, Zuri? She leaned forward slightly. The truth. First. Everything else after. He sat back. And then Cha Woo-jin, who never explained himself to anyone, started talking. His father had told him about the settlement the year he was dying. He had told him the way sick men tell things they've carried too long. Not cleanly, not completely, but with the weight of something that had needed to be said for decades. He told him that a woman had once walked into the organization with the power to destroy it and had chosen not to. That she had protected the Cha family at significant personal cost and received a settlement that didn't come close to the value of what she had done. He told Cha Woo-jin that if that woman's name ever came back inside Hanseo Capital, he needed to handle it personally. He died before Woo-jin could ask what handling it meant. When Zuri's employment file crossed his desk on her hiring day 3 years ago, he had seen Okafor and her mother's name field on her background documentation. He had paused. He had run the trace himself, privately, and confirmed who she was within 24 hours. And then he had let her be hired anyway. Zuri's voice was quiet. Why? He looked at her. Because I wanted to know who she had become. The woman who could have destroyed us sent a daughter back into the same building, and I wanted to know if that was a coincidence or something else. He paused. And because I watched your first week, the way you worked, I wanted to see how far you would go. And the promotion? He said nothing. You knew I had earned it, she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice didn't rise. It was worse than if it had. You knew what I had built in 3 years. You knew what Park couldn't do. And you gave it to him anyway because full authority meant I would eventually have access to everything, including the founding records. Still nothing from him. You were afraid, she said. Of me. After 3 years of watching me hold your empire up, you were afraid of what I would find. He met her eyes. Yes. The word landed in the room and sat there. Zuri was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked to her window and looked out at the street below, and her reflection looked back at her from the glass, composed, sharp, and completely decided. She turned around. I'm going to stop the release timer. I'm the only one with standing deposit as the named descendant, and I'm going to do it. Not for you. She held his gaze. My mother went quiet to protect a family that didn't deserve it. I am not going quiet, but I'm also not burning something down just because I can. I am better than that. And I need you to understand that clearly, the reason this organization survives is not because of what you built. It's because of what I chose. He looked at her for a long time. And what do you want in return? Everything I said the first time you came to this store. Chief Financial Architect. Signing authority. Board seat. 4% equity. Director Park removed from my department by end of week. She crossed her arms. And one more thing. An apology. A real one. Not to HR. To me. In person. The silence stretched. Cha Woo-jin was a man whose silence usually meant refusal. This silence was different. This one was a man looking at himself from the outside for the first time in a long while and not entirely liking what he saw. You're right, he said finally. I saw what you built. I knew what you were worth. And I let my own fear decide instead. That was wrong. He paused. I'm sorry, Zuri. She looked at him. Then she nodded once. Good, she said. I'll contact the legal firm tonight. Zuri called Geneva. She froze the release timer with 22 hours to spare. The legal contact confirmed the suspension with one condition, a formal review in 30 days. She accepted it, hung up, and sat in the silence of her apartment with her eyes closed for exactly 60 seconds. Then she opened them, picked up her phone, and called Cha Woo-jin. It's done, she said. I'll be in the building Tuesday. Have the contract ready. She had her business cards printed Monday morning. Chief Financial Architect. She designed them herself. Clean font. Her name in full. She picked them up on her way in. She walked back through those same glass doors on a Tuesday, and the building felt different. It looked the same marble floors, same elevator banks, same receptionist at the front desk who stood up slightly when she walked in. But it felt different because she felt different. She wasn't returning. She was arriving. For real, for the first time. She walked past Director Park's office. She didn't look at it. She didn't need to. Her team saw her coming down the corridor, and the change in the room was immediate and physical, shoulders dropping, breath releasing, the particular exhale of people who had been holding something up without the right tools and could finally put it down. Her junior analyst actually said, "Oh, thank God," under his breath, and then looked horrified that he'd said it out loud. Zuri looked at him and said, "Get me the subsidiary files from the last 3 weeks. All of them. I already know they're a mess." He moved faster than she had ever seen him move. Ji-hoon, the underboss, met her in the corridor near the executive floor. He extended his hand. "Welcome back." She shook it. He held the handshake a moment and said quietly, "He made the right decision." She looked at him. "I made the right decision," she said, and kept walking. Cha Woo-jin was in the boardroom when she arrived for the contract signing. He stood when she walked in. He did not sit back down until she did. 3 people in that room noticed, and every one of them understood something had shifted that would not be shifting back. She signed the contract without reading it again. She had written most of it herself. Within 6 days, Zuri had unwound every error Park had introduced into the system, restructured the 2 exposed subsidiaries, and filed the overdue quarterly projections. The Yoon Network's acquisition offer landed on a financial structure so clean and so reinforced that their legal team had no foothold. They withdrew within the week. Jihoon sent Suri a message that said simply, "Handled." She sent back a thumbs up. Amara called that Friday evening. "How does it feel, being back?" Zuri was at her desk in her new office, her name on the door, her city through the window, her work on the screen. She thought about the question honestly. "It doesn't feel like going back," she said. "It feels like taking over." Amara screamed into the phone. Zuri laughed. He came to her office late that evening, when the floor was quiet and the building had gone to its nighttime stillness. He stood in the doorway. She didn't look up. "The Yoon situation is resolved," he said. "The board ratified your title and equity this afternoon. Everything is in writing and filed." "I know," she said. "I signed it this morning." He was quiet for a moment. "Then, why did you stop the timer? You had leverage. You could have walked away with significantly more." She looked up at him. And for a moment the office was just two people in a quiet building at the end of a long road, and there was no negotiation happening between them. Just the truth. "My mother went quiet and disappeared so a powerful family could stay powerful," she said. "No one protected her. No one even thanked her. I stopped that timer because I refused to let her sacrifice me nothing, and I also refused to repeat it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not staying quiet. I'm staying right here, with my name on the door and my signature on every account. That's the difference between her and me. That's what I chose." He looked at her for a long time. Something in his expression shifted. Not softened exactly, but deepened. Like a man who had spent years calculating everything, finally encountering something he could not put in a column. "My father said to take care of it," he said quietly. "When she came back into this building, I think I finally understand what he meant." He paused. "He meant to make sure she was protected this time." Zuri held his eyes. The air between them was full of things neither of them was ready to name out loud, and neither of them moved to name them. She looked back at her screen. "Guding, Jia Wuzin." He left. And in the hallway, where she couldn't see him, he stopped walking for just a moment. And he smiled. The way a man smiles when he realizes he has met his equal and somehow, impossibly, managed not to lose her. The narrator closed over the city lights outside her window. She did not come back for him. She came back for herself, for her mother, for every woman who was told to go quiet and disappear. She came back and she put her name on the door, and she didn't ask anyone's permission. That is what fearless looks like. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe if you are not already here. We tell the stories of women who win. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and we will see you in the next one.